Hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the swear word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chilihead community, by the chilihead community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. We are going to be discussing ultimately the deep dive into the world's hottest peppers. There's no hot or not tonight. We're just going to get down to business. So episode 108 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here, rocking and rolling, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Apple Podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show what it is. Continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are just curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. So if you've ever bitten into a pepper that made you question your life choices or wondered how something so small could pack so much pain, well, then you're in the right place, because today we're going to be diving deep into the fire. We're talking about the evolution of the hottest peppers on Earth, how they're measured, what it takes to make them into the Guinness Book of World Records, and why some peppers have the spotlight even when they haven't even hit the store shelves. So let's go ahead and start tonight's episode. All right, so pretty simple and easy to talk about here. Let's first start discussing what is a hot pepper and what makes it a hot pepper. So let's go ahead and start with the basics. So what makes a pepper hot? Well, that's capsaicin. That's the chemical compound that is responsible for the burning sensation. It's an evolutionary defense mechanism that is to deter mammals from eating the fruit. So, of course, human nature as it is, we're not always the smartest. It's not going to deter us. It actually invigorates some of us crazy chili heads out there. But animals like birds do not have the same receptors as we do, and they can just eat peppers and disperse the seeds and just let that continue to spread in a natural occurring way. That's where nature's pretty wild like that, and I absolutely love it. So the heat of a pepper is measured in the Scoville heat units, or SHU for short. This scale was developed by Wilbur Scoville in 1912. Initially, it involved diluting pepper extract in sugar water until the panel could no longer taste the heat in the overall solution. They had to continue to dilute it, sometimes up to 300,000 times, and it would be rated at 300,000 SHUs. Pretty subjective though, right? One person's taste buds may be more in tune than another's, which leads to some, inaccuracies, some issues. All these things arrive. Well, how do you fix that? These days, we use something called HPLC, which is high performance liquid chromatography. So this measures the capsaicinoids much more accurately, and it is much more precise and consistent, and it's a lot easier on those taste testers' tongues. So the origin of SHU tasting, as I had mentioned before, dates back to Wilbur Scoville, who was a pharmacist who worked for Parkin Davis, and in his quest to standardize the effects of capsaicin containing products, he came up with what has become or known as the Scoville organotopic test. Now, back then, it was extremely revolutionary idea Today, it's more of a nod to the pepper history than a serious metric. Now that SHU testing uses dry weight basis, this means that the pepper is dried, then pulverized, and then the capsaicin contents are then analyzed and converted into the SHU number. When you hear that a pepper hits 1.4 million SHUs, that is based on pure lab chemistry, not someone sweating bullets in a lab coat, eating your hot peppers, and trying to tell you what they think. They're getting this simply based off of science. So, next up, that brings into the conversation the Guinness World Records and their overarching criteria. So, all right, then how does a pepper get into the Guinness World Records? Well, it's not as simple as growing a hot pepper and calling the press. Guinness requires a few things, and this is based on what they have listed online. This is a consistent batch having verified lab testing using HPLC, third-party validation from a certified lab. They need public visibility, which that part is also a little bit interesting. Don't quite understand to what fine tooth they're calling public visibility, but that's for a different topic. We'll dive into that. Don't want to get too caught down that rabbit trail. But this means a person has to grow a stable strain, test it multiple times, and prove that it was not just a one-off genetic fluke. This is why the records aren't broken every other weekend, and there's a lot of red tape. Not to mention, it is an expensive process and definitely eats up a lot of time. You're not guaranteed that it's going to happen or be processed or reviewed or handled in any way in, a few months. It could even go as long as a few years before they actually are able to validate and verify your findings and what you submitted. A simple error in the process along the way could reset and start the whole process all over. Now that we're talking about Guinness, let's go ahead and talk about what Guinness identifies as the early kings of heat. So let's go back in time here to the red Savina Habanero that held the title in the late 1990s, topping out around 577,000 SHUs. This was bred by Frank Garcia in California, and for a while there, it was the ultimate challenge pepper. A lot of people were seeking it. Even after it was dethroned, a lot of people were looking for it. To this day, it is the most sought after habanero variant that is out there. So, the red Savina Habanero was the first to be dubbed the, highest heat pepper based on Guinness. Then came the Boot Jolokia, or ghost pepper. This was out of northeastern India, and in 2007, it hit the Guinness charts at over 1 million SHUs. It was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, hot sauce companies and YouTube challengers had a new villain to take on, to add into their products, to melt their faces off with, and enjoy documenting and sharing the journey with the masses. Following that came the Trinidad Scorpion Butch Tea, hitting at about 1.4 million SHUs in 2011. It looked evil. It definitely tasted hotter, and it cemented the Scorpion as the worthy successor. From there, this is where you start to enter into 2013. Ed Curry coming in with the Reaper, and he said, "Hold my sauce and let's get this one done." He clocked that one in. The very first testing was 1.64 million, and that was the average SHUs for that, with a peak over 2.2 million, and it held the Guinness title for about a decade. Now, fun little fact here: while the peak SHUs are nice, they are more of a bragging right than the average. The average is what everyone likes to get a good idea. That's the best representation of expectations. The average is also what they utilize to end up cusping out what is the hottest for Guinness. So while you may see peak numbers really blowing off the charts, do not hold on to those numbers as gospel. They are just simply that. They are the peak outliers. So, another thing here before diving back into this is, while the, Reaper isn't just a hot pepper, it has become a brand. Ed Curry marketed the heck out of it, and yes, it delivers the pain, but was it the actual hottest ever grown? That is the question. The next part to this is, while we're highlighting what Guinness has deemed and what has been submitted to Guinness and paid for, which Guinness still is a marketing company, that then therein lies the argument or the concern of hotter peppers that are out there that have not gone through the Guinness rigmarole that is paying them to review and analyze that. I say that to take a quick break from what Guinness deems and talk about some other peppers here. So, 2005, the 7-Pot Primo was created by master horticulturalist Troy Primo. This pepper here, it actually predates the Carolina Reaper, and many in the community believe that it was the true inspiration behind the Reaper's development. That is what I will leave there. There's much more that could be dived into that, and it's all over the internet if you're trying to look into the different outlooks on both sides of the story. But I lean into this here because in 2005, while this pepper was created and tested at an independent lab, it was clocked in at 1.47 million Scovilles, and that is substantially earlier than the recorded date at which the Reaper was reigning the title. So therefore, the 7-Pot Primo, had it gone through the rigmarole that is Guinness, would have held that title throughout the iteration time frame of the Butch Tea and the Moruga, etc., really coming through based off of the overall average SHUs. So fast forward to 2024, during the filming of Hulu's Superhot, a batch of 7-Pot Primo was tested and clocked at 1.79 million SHUs. That is substantially higher than the average Reaper testing. And this was all done using an independent, well-trusted lab and proven there. Now, once again, this was not submitted to Guinness, so therefore this does not grace the Guinness marketing books era of clocking this in for history. So why hasn't it been recognized by Guinness? Well, ultimately, it is paperwork. It's a process. It's expensive. It's time-consuming. And frankly, it wasn't really made a priority to have this done, as with many other peppers. In 2012, the creation of the Primo Tally hits the scene, and immediately then, tons of people are already talking about how the Primo Tally is extremely hot, and it has definitely started to evolve into the conversation of the hottest peppers that you can get your hands on. So that leads us to continue our conversation about the Guinness ranked peppers. So next up, well, let's go ahead and address the overall latest headline attention grabbing pepper, Pepper X. It was announced by Ed Curry in 2023, which claimed to be an SHU of 2.69 million or a little bit over, and that's absolutely intense. But here's the kicker. It's not released publicly. So that's right. There's not really seeds. There's no sauce. There's no fresh pods out there. And most of us can't even verify the claim because we've never had access. It exists in the media and marketing, but not in reality. That's why many in the pepper world take the Pepper X title with a grain of pink Himalayan salt. And, ultimately, I would love to see more individuals get their hands on or try this pepper, because right now, those that have had or supposedly have had and shown on camera eating these have been those that work for Pucker Butt, which makes sense. But at the same time, those other individuals that have not are mostly their media that already would crumble at the idea of a habanero or ghost pepper, and they have no real gauge or understanding of what other peppers bring to the table in realms of heat. That is all to say there's many other facets in the whole capsaicinoids, in the way they hit, in the way they deliver this pain to the brain and making you trick and think into certain things being hotter than they are. So, all that to say, there's much more that can be uncovered and really better understood through that process. So, what's really fascinating about the culture around these peppers is that we've got these reaction channels, and you got extreme eating challenges and hot sauce festivals and TV shows like Hot Ones, and all these things really starting to hit the mainstream niche and really have this blow up. And because of all the drama and hype surrounding these hottest varieties, you have just this constant back and forth online, the division in both ways about any and every topic possible. This is something that does not need to be the main focal point, but unfortunately has become a focal point for so many. So, YouTube videos like man eating a Carolina Reaper and regrets his life decisions may rack up millions of views, and a hot sauce may create a super concentrated extract just to scare a whole bunch of people. And yet, in the middle of this all, there's real agriculture, real horticulture, and a passionate community pushing plants breeding to its limits and really continuing to love and enjoy the overall craft that is hot peppers, creating spicy products, lighting yourself on fire on stage, doing it with friends, watching them just completely sweat profusely and question everything. This is just not a small thing that you push off to the side. There is a true core basis to this community. So why does Guinness still matter? Well, so people are often chasing Guinness World Records because they view it as a means of credibility. It's become somewhat of a gold standard in the eyes of many for documenting, great feats. When peppers hit that list, it gets immortalized. Farmers see it as an increased demand to grow these crops and to continue to benefit from the fame that is coming off of that new notoriety. Hot sauce makers also view it in the same way, and it also gets that nice marketing boost by saying, hey, our sauce, our product is featuring this pepper. And then you have growers around the world that are constantly pushing themselves and wanting to try to top these new achieved goals and limits. And for a lot of us in the chili head world, it's just plain fun. It creates excitement. It has this invoked debate that we have seen now. Now it does go off on a tangent at times and become a little bit more toxic than just a simple debate and understanding and trying to really gain a better insight on what's going on. And sometimes that controversy is also what helps keep the fire alive. As you're continuing to push these boundaries and these topics and really gain a better understanding of what's out there and what's going on, you have different sections of the world all trying to create something that speaks to them. And at the same time, there's quite a few that are chasing that ever so coveted world's hottest. Now, is the pepper industry simply just what is the world's hottest? I would argue it's not. I would argue there's much more behind the culture that is the pepper world, the pepper scene. You have the love for growing. You have many different facets within that. You have those individuals that are trying to not only do this in a better, sustainable, more earth help, regenerational, less chemical dependent way. And then you have those that are like, I don't care, let's just crank this out, and whatever's the simplest route, let me roll with that. Then you have those individuals that are out there, creating product off of what these farmers are able to do. So it is a constant feeding scale. If there's no growers, then there's no product makers. And if there's no product makers, then there's no consumers. And if there's no consumers, then there's no challengers. And if there's no challengers, there's no viral media hype. And if there's no viral media hype, then there's no continued growth to those that have zero expectations or understanding of what goes on in this industry. And it goes back the other way. I mean, you start to remove one end or the other, and the whole thing falls apart. So as people continue to have feuds and this heated, fueled debate over world's hottest this or pepper name that, I do believe that there are a way that you can go about this, and I think that ultimately the chili head community as a whole should help define what this standard is for. Let's just talk about the world's hottest, because ultimately at the end of the day, Guinness, while it may hold records within there, is also a bit of a limiting factor and handicap to some of those individuals that are, say, backyard gardeners, or they're just simply doing it for the love of the hobby as a whole. They may not want to divert their funds to, play along in the game that is Guinness to have their products featured there. Not saying that what Guinness is doing is completely irrelevant. I just believe that there are many peppers that invoke the, having the reason to have their name in the hat for what is the hottest thing you can get your hands on these days. And continuing to see the growth, the perfection, really fine tuning the stability of a lot of these crosses and watching new ones come into the fold is the real fun, the passion, and the joy that is behind it. A lot of consumers and everyday folks that may go by and you're driving by your local fast food restaurant and all of a sudden it's like spicy food this, hot challenge that. All of that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for those passionate, caring people that are motivated to make an impact. So to say that simply those that want to toss money towards a marketing agency as the official standard is not quite fair representation of what is out there and what everyone is doing. So I think ultimately defining the idea of having a very clear expectations of sample size, how it is done, sending it in for HPLC, independent lab testing, having trusted, certified third-party testing facilities as the core basis if you are chasing something like that, which is world's hottest pepper, would be crucial for the community. That way you alleviate the unnecessary hurdle that is Guinness. So now, with that being said, do I think that that should be the only focal point? No. I think there are many individuals out there that are ultimately crafting or trying to crossbreed these peppers in such a way that they have a very vast culinary use, and they bring value in dishes and uniting people and the love of the flavor that they bring and the use case and everything that comes with it. And I think there's a lot that also they try to crossbreed, and the idea is to invoke a very cool, fun, playful, sometimes even decorative appearance to these plants that they're growing. And the fruit, while they may be hot, they're not necessarily seeking out what is the hottest. Does that mean you should discount or discredit those individuals that are just enjoying it for the passion? No, not at all. I think that the differences between the different peppers, the way they come on, the way the heat is delivered, the flavor profiles to it, the bitterness, the overall floral notes, the earthy notes, the sweet notes, the fruity notes, all these things, the smokiness, the earthy, the nutty, like you could go on and on and on. There's no one right way to have a pepper. There's no one way that we should just seek out what's the hottest. Because the perfect example there is the Primo Tali. You're taking a Fatali, which is not necessarily, it is a hot pepper, but it's not necessarily what you would consider a super hot, and mixing it with a super hot, and boom, mind blown, because now you have something that is just way hotter than what expectations should have been, or what logic would have told you it would have been. And without that curiosity, without that creativity, without that continuation to love, support, and push those around us to continue to grow, the whole thing unravels. It's not necessarily something that you can just easily just shrug off and forget. So, all that being said, there you have it. From early habaneros to ghost peppers, scorpions, reapers, primos, and the elusive Pepper X, the world of super hots and spiciness is very complicated. It's always evolving, and we will keep chasing the burn and growing the plants and celebrating the culture. Whether you're in it for the flavor, you're in it for the heat, or the thrill, you're a part of this journey. So, with that being said, if there is a pepper that you love, whether it's the hottest thing you've had or not, or it has just absolutely caught your attention and has captivated you from the start, go ahead, let me know down below in the comments, or reach out on socials and let me know which pepper has sparked your drive, your motivation, brought you into this community, and made you love and appreciate what is going on. And, just know that the things that are dividing us are simply just silly things. We need to focus on the main reason as to why we are here and why we love what we do. We are here for the overall capsaicin journey, the love of burning, and the building together of friendships along the way. Your creative spark might just be the thing that helps fuel someone else's journey as well. Don't let that slip away. Don't let that be a small thing. And just know that you as well can make a better difference by not continuing to stoke the fire, but yet working together to find a way to bring others together throughout this conversation. And, hey, don't forget, just continue to love the idea of growing and getting out there and having fun. A lot of this is fueled and sparked by the overall joy of just being out there in the dirt, planting, having fun, taking care of something, watching a small seed become a large plant loaded with the great fruits that you have the chance to enjoy and share with others, and watch as they experience the overall fun and passion that is the capsaicin community. So don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday night. I want to say thank you all for rocking and rolling with me throughout these solo episodes. Some fine tweaks will be coming here soon. Been kind of working through some stuff behind the scenes, as well as guest interviews will be starting back up very, very soon. So stay tuned for those, as a lot of the new guests have been locked in and ready to go, and we'll be having some great fun. So continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are just curious about the world of hot. And don't forget that we will be rocking and rolling back here Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central for the next episode of The Swear Word. I want to give a quick shout out for the sponsors. We have podvision.io. If you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all of those needs, as well as webdx.one. Hey, if you have an online website, maybe it's not a great representation of you and your business and all the amazing things that you do. Maybe you had somebody, but you've lost contact with them, and now you've kind of lost control of your website. Highly recommend checking out webdx.one for all of those needs. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.